My dear kitty cats, today we're going to talk about stalkers and we'll link it all to Halloween, which unfortunately is going to be banned in Russia. And that's really a shame. Because when I work with my clients and patients on the fear of death, fear of life, and various phobias, I ask them to draw this fear, to imagine themselves as this fear, to dress up as this fear. And in this way, this annual tradition actually helps us get to know our own fears better. During this time, various horror movies are shown because they're part of our lives. To just take it away and reject it, calling it Satanism, turning it all off. In my opinion, that's boring at the very least. Write your thoughts on Halloween in the comments. Today I'm filming this video on October 31st, but I'll probably publish it on Sunday, so it'll already be November. But there's still some kind of vibe and aura, so to speak, lingering from these days. That's why the topic of stalking and our fears is perfect for this moment. Please write in the comments if you've ever been stalked or if you've ever had the idea to follow or watch someone yourself. Have you ever felt the need to be a voyeur? For example, I sometimes feel the urge to buy a spyglass and watch my Chinese neighbors across the way. There are huge skyscrapers in my neighborhood here, and these luxurious two-story apartments have been bought up by Chinese people. And I think, why not? Why not buy that spyglass and start looking at all of this, watching, observing, analyzing like some kind of reality show? Because in most cases, there are several types of stalking. We'll get to them now. This element of a game is always present. There's a kind of excitement, the fear of being caught. By the way, they're all really scared. They're total cowards. That's why your job is to speak up about them as loudly as possible right away. Don't sink even further into the victim role. You already have it. If a stalker has chosen you, if an aggressor has grabbed onto you, keep in mind that there's a lot of that victim in you, and your job is to work through that victimhood thoroughly with a psychologist. Otherwise, if not this one, then another stalker or abuser will cross your path. I don't want to engage in victim blaming or accuse the victim even further. This isn't about blame, it's about the victim's inner work. Because when you're afraid, the aggressor gets even more excited. He enjoys it much more than when you stop being afraid of him and stop playing this game against him. You become the stalker yourself. And when we watch some scary movies, I always tell my child, now imagine that you are that clown who's doing this. You are the shark that's attacking. It's not you being attacked, you're the one attacking. Unleash your anger, unleash your energy, your courage, your life, your power. I'm powerful, I'm the one who will eat, not the one who gets eaten. So that's it, my dear kitty cats. Let's take things slowly and step by step. That would be great, because there's this type of stalker who does this. They they pick some random person and start following them for 1, 2, or 3 months. Then they get bored of it. Besides following them, they just pick someone from the crowd and follow them. They also dig through all their social media and look up details in directories. First name, last name, patronymic, workplace, and birth date. Blah, blah, blah. It's like some kind of spy game. He feels like Agent 007. This is very immature, childish behavior. In fact, any stalker we discuss, there are a great many of them, but about 5 or 6 main types are identified. This childishness, this immature psyche is characteristic of any stalker. It doesn't matter whether it's a seeker of closeness or some kind of avenger, because it could be an avenger. And I understand them very well. I myself am such a vengeful person. I think, oh God, I hope I don't turn into a stalker. It's so close and understandable to me. If I didn't have my family, my career, my job, and an interesting life, I could easily get stuck in that. Every stalker has this element of getting stuck. They can get absorbed in it, get bogged down, get stuck. There's a bit of an epileptoid component to it. Not everyone is able to watch for hours. For example, I spent my whole childhood sitting by the window. I would sit on the windowsill and just watch people passing by. I liked watching that man standing off to the side, smoking, and watching the trams go by. I lived on Mali Prospect. Back then it was called Shtorsa Prospect. It was still Leningrad, Shtorsa Prospect. Now it's Mali Prospect. I would sit there watching people walk by as I waited for my mom. And I could watch this for hours, watch this reality show. When I sat in class, instead of studying, I was watching things like what earrings she was wearing. I wonder what she ate for breakfast today. That's my teacher. Who does she live with? This is her apartment. What's it like? How is it furnished? And you fly away, fly away. So basically, almost any stalker has such a vivid imagination that they stop realizing where reality ends and their imaginary world begins. And in this imaginary world, he fulfills and compensates for all his needs. And what's really difficult about all this, it's that it's hard for him to ground himself and enjoy his own reality. Because he disappears. Even though there may be narcissistic personality disorder, they could also be sociopaths, psychopaths, or even people with autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar affective disorder, or depressive episodes. For example, a rejected husband who still loves his wife deeply and wants to win her back becomes very depressed. And in this sadness, he loses some of his adequacy, and then he starts to stalk her, to wait for her, to follow her around. Just so you know, these people have lived together for years and have 2 healthy children. And so, on the one hand, it feels wrong to call him a stalker. After all, he's her husband. But on the other hand, his behavior is already criminal. Even though Russia doesn't have an anti-stalking law, which is unfortunate, and by the way, I also want to address all police officers. Tell me, please, do people come to you with these complaints? I completely understand that you have a lot of work and are very busy. There are many different murders, the most terrible crimes, maniacs. And then a girl comes in saying someone's standing by her window and you think you don't have time for that. Because right here, a child was just raped by a pedophile. I mean, there's something even more terrifying. But in any case, I have a question for you. If this happened to your children, if your child was being stalked, what actions would you take? I'm addressing not only the police, not only the judges, but actually everyone right now. What would you do at that moment? How would you react? Please tell me. I'll give recommendations a little later because if I speak as a parent, I would immediately say, oh, well, I would hire people who would explain everything to him very clearly. And he would think long and hard about whether he should be watching my child or not. Right? So that's just my personal kind of first reaction. Hire people to clarify, explain everything, and make sure everything is very detailed, clear, and understandable once and for all. To kill the desire to do something like that. And I have a question for you. Please, each of you, write in the comments right now. If this was happening to your child, what would you do? Write your answers. So, if we're going to talk about this portrait of stalkers, and right now I want to focus on that because, well, everything is clear with the victim. You live like you're in hell year after year. It's a complete nightmare. You just stop belonging to yourself and you fear everything. Your paranoia grows. You start falling into depressive states. You start either eating a lot or losing weight, or on the contrary, you don't want to eat. You stop going out unless you have to. You're constantly moving, changing your phone number. So, this life in hell is actually the life of a victim. It's all clear. The big question concerns the stalkers themselves. Understanding the nature of this stalking. Why does a person need to be in this? So I'm returning to his illusory world, and I want to remind you what drives him, what motivates him. Yes, there can be different impulses, but usually they always come from the same place. He feels 2 strong extremes toward the victim. Deep love on one hand and hatred on the other. And there's just a small step from love to hate. So that's why it's incredibly interesting. And since I understand it very well, it's very close to me. And I'll say it again, if it weren't for my interesting life, I would be more lonely. Because they're quite lonely people. They don't have many friends and they don't have interesting work. Often, they live on some kind of benefits. Some are supported by their parents. They might earn a little bit of money here and there. Because notice, they spend a huge amount of time on their stalking, and not everyone has that kind of time. You have to agree. So they'd have to receive some kind of disability benefits, because often these are patients with paranoid schizophrenia. He has his disability and lives with his mother. Both receive pensions, and he buys himself buckwheat and eggs. And then he has an object, you. He follows you, has already created 148 pages. At night, during the day, we all remember the series Baby Reindeer, which on one hand deserves its own analysis, its own video, its own film. On the other hand, I'm not sure if I'll return to making that separate film. I actually only got around to it not so long ago. In fact, I watched it just a couple of weeks ago, a week ago. I shouldn't have waited. I should have watched it and made this video sooner. Although I did make a video about stalking about 7 years ago, my very first video on the topic. So, if I talk about how much I understand them, I'll try to explain it to you now. And you should really put yourself in my shoes, feel it with every fiber of your soul, sense it and experience it. For example, I had a female doctor, this is vengeful stalking now, by the way, which also exists, post-traumatic stress disorder. Oh, they can be vengeful, my goodness, and dangerous. So I had this one female doctor who didn't treat me very well. That bitch, Maximova, that creature, a dentist. I thought about her for many years because by nature I am a very vengeful person. I couldn't get her out of my imagination. In my mind, I beat her, strangled her, set her on fire, cut her. There was nothing I didn't do to her in my head. That's how I worked through my anger toward that woman. I imagined sending people to deal with her, how I would wait for her myself. That's how much she hurt my pride, like a splinter stuck in my ass, like a drill. Well, I'll deal with you. And if it weren't for my involvement in this reality, it's quite possible I would have obsessed over all this in my head. To the point where I would have tracked her down, I would have found out where she lives, I would have looked up her address, and I would have started doing something like that. That would have turned me into a real stalker, that vengeful stalker. That's why I understand them. I am that stalker myself. I'm halfway there. Just a little more, make me a bit more traumatized, a bit more troubled, and I'll go there. Right now, if this resonates with you, if you understand what I'm talking about, it's like you won't get away from me, and it's like you can't live, you can't breathe until you do it, until you rub that bastard's face into the pavement. You can't calm down, that's how much it holds you. Again, it could be post-traumatic stress disorder, a person who suffered so much because of some guy. Next, let's say I still often have this weird thing going on even today. Write in the comments if you have this too. I get stuck on social media. I have a few strange people I follow there. And these social networks, it could be VK. VK is just the most messed up social network. I'll find some woman there. Well, I can't really say she's just like the daughter of some former teacher of mine. And for some reason, I start following her, watching her husband. I see that this husband became her ex-husband, then she had a child, and I can keep doing this for many years. And it could be other people. And then I ask myself, why am I doing this? Why? For what? It's like a part of me is absent. As if I'm not there at that moment, I disappear, and I join someone else's family and live the life of that family. Like, what if, I could have had that kind of life. I could have lived there, been like that, right? Or, for example, I suddenly start thinking about some couple, and I wonder, what is it like for them over there? What if, like, how is her room furnished, and how did she go to work? What did she do? Did she cook him some porridge or something? What if I'm walking over there right now? I'm walking there in my mind, touching, opening that furniture. I'm there, watching, observing. It's like I'm invisible. A stalker is invisible. It's like I dissolve. I'm not there. I've disappeared. And I get this overwhelming desire, like I can't even control myself, to go there, to that place, and see what's it like there, what's it like there, what's it like there, what's it like there, how. Let me in, let me in. I want to dissolve into it, be part of it, identify with it, and live through it. Why do I need this? It's almost hard for me to even answer that question, but it's happening to me. And it's only because actually, well, listen, you have a husband, 2 kids, you're a clinical psychologist. Look, you travel to different countries. What the hell is even happening to you? Oh, yes, 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 yes. Let's ground ourselves, let's ground ourselves, let's ground ourselves. But if I didn't have this family, I would be a lonely person. I would have gotten so carried away that quite possibly in some of my fantasies I could have gone very far. And that immediately brings to mind Baby Reindeer. Remember that series? If not, I highly recommend watching it urgently. You can easily watch all 7 captivating episodes in one evening. It's amazing. You'll just get completely hooked on it. And this fat woman, well, she was probably living on some kind of benefits. She lost touch with reality. That's exactly de Clermont-Bolt's syndrome, erotomania. She made up in her head that they had this relationship.
I thought it over and I agree. Agree to what exactly? To the kid's wedding and the whole package. Wait, who mentioned a wedding here?
If we hurry, we could have 3. I already have names.
As I mentioned earlier, they have such a vivid imagination that you stop understanding, did this really happen, or did you dream it? Or was it just your imagination? It's unclear where the boundaries are. What was real? What happened? Did he say or send me something? Well, yes, of course. He gave me free tea or Coca-Cola, and he always did the same for her. He talked to her. So they had some kind of mutual attention and attraction between each other. And, on his side, there was some involvement too. And it was like he gave me a reason, me, a fat, lonely, abandoned woman who lives in a dump, who has lost touch with reality. By the way, you can instantly tell if someone is mentally ill by their surroundings. But not many people are in psychosis. There's a percentage of those who enter a psychotic state, but it's not a large percentage overall. They just have a personality disorder and are more or less in an adequate state. But they allow themselves these things, which shows a pathological character. He kind of understands intellectually that he's stalking. He perfectly understands that he shouldn't do this, that it's dangerous. Oh, he hides. He doesn't want to be caught. But he knows and sees everything perfectly. He hears and understands too. But his other side says, no, 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 everything is allowed. And here's another very interesting element. On one hand, we know many examples when a girl can say, he pursued me for so long.
I was looking for her my whole life, you can't imagine. I saw her at school, and in 8th grade I fell in love with her, tried to get her attention and approached her, and she never gave anything back. She'd say, back off. It was just a dream, just my dream. You understand? I chased after her all through school. And I told her that we would have a son for sure. She said, a son? I told her, yeah, let's talk. She said, well, back off, back off, and all that. I applied to the university with her just to be close to her. And I didn't get in at all because I'm stupid. But somehow, I don't know how, it worked out. And so I always thought about it, that's all. It's like my thought became material, you know?
He sang serenades under my window and threw little stones, and he wrote love letters. That's my grandma. For example, I remember my grandma, she used to tell me stories like this. Listen, my grandpa, your grandpa, he just wore me down. I never loved, wanted, or waited for him. When Petya died, I crossed myself and thanked God he was gone. But I spent my whole conscious life with him and had 4 children. But he got me exactly through stalking. He was waiting for me everywhere. He gave me no peace. And then eventually in the Soviet Union, I married, had kids, and lived my life. So why doesn't another stalker have a chance? Why did our mothers, grandmothers, and many of us have that chance? And did we marry our stalkers? For example, my husband, isn't he a stalker? He's a very persistent, obsessive man. It's impossible to get rid of him, impossible. He'll come after you with gold, with flowers, I don't know what else. He'll buy a car or something. He'll show up like a prince on a white horse. He'll jump out of his pants, but he'll get me back. That's just his tendency. So how can I be sure I'm not living with a stalker or that my grandmother didn't? Where is the line? We all know those stories. He kept pursuing me until he finally got what he wanted. Or we lived together for so many years, we got divorced, and he keeps trying to win me back. So that's why, this moment, why he feels not exactly that he's right, but this stalker lover who is in love, who has imagined all these emotions, as if, well, no, I still have this chance, I still have this opportunity. I wrote to her like this, I stuck a chocolate bar to her window, I bought her flowers, I invited her to the movies. I'm trying now, trying, and just a little more trying, and it will work out. And for some people it works out. Of course, there are some truly pathological stalking cases. For example, someone who's been doing it for 11 years. There was a great report by Ksenia Sobchak. Be sure to watch it. It's called 3 Stalking Victims, and one victim has been pursued for 11 years.
Daniil Gugolko is my former patient. In any company I find myself in, everyone knows that I'm being pursued by a sick pervert. How long have you lived this way? 11 years of hell?
A nurse, the boy was 12 years old at the time. Well, I gave the child some injections and he fell in love. And very often boys fall in love with their teacher, fall in love with their doctor. But we women fall in love with our plastic surgeons. Admit it, I've had so many girls who were in love with their plastic surgeons. And by the way, I even asked the wife of my plastic surgeon, I said, aren't you jealous of him? How does that even work? Because every other woman goes crazy over her plastic surgeon, but that's not all. By the way, write in the comments if you've ever been in love with your doctor, your academic advisor, or your teacher. Because that's a story that's actually quite common. When we idolize them, we get into all these transference projections, seeing them as a parent figure. And we're completely not aware of it because they're so caring, so special. So in this way, they are very, very close to me. These stalkers make sense. So yes, we've described several types, the vengeful ones. There are stalkers. It's just that patients on the autism spectrum don't really understand how to approach someone romantically. They don't really understand and behave in a somewhat unacceptable way. They cross boundaries, they just don't understand. They can't test this reality, they don't quite realize or recognize it, they don't have these adequate skills.
Do you want me to lick your heels?
No thanks.
I bought you a 90 ruble gift at the market. You can use it for different purposes, whatever you like.
There's this kind of foolishness, and when you tell him to leave you alone, he doesn't. For example, there's just this type, an awkward suitor, and there's this type of stalker. He didn't even make up a story for himself. Maybe things could have been okay, but later he started acting really inappropriately. Then there are stalkers who are already very dangerous, criminal stalkers who take things all the way. Yes, they are of course already real psychopaths, yes, with antisocial personality disorder, yes, they could even be sadists, yes, that kind of sadism. These can be various kinds of deviations, those perversions, they could have BDSM needs and so on. So these are very dangerous people. They're looking for their victims and they can really harm them. They're very dangerous. These are people you should definitely stay away from. But if we approach our baby reindeer, let's still touch on it a little bit. Why? I can't say that every victim of stalking, and women to a lesser extent, just so you understand, about 80% are men. They get obsessed with this stalking, and about 20 to 15% are women. They also like to hunt men, and if they're lesbians, then a woman can get obsessed with another woman too. Yes, that's how it is. So that's how it is. And if we take, for example, baby reindeer as an example, in a sense it reflects the victim to some extent. It's just that he did a great job. He was very aware of everything. He saw his own victimhood. He saw his need to be violated once again by his producer, who, as you remember, tore up his whole ass, those gloves. And here it's shown very well how people actually get into Hollywood in general. What did Brad Pitt have to go through? And if you look, for example, at Brad Pitt, such a cute little boy, right? So sweet and charming. And not just Brad Pitt, but many stars. I mean, they were fully harassed. They went through it over and over and over. So there is a lot of this victim behavior. And his comedy career just wasn't working out, but he wanted it so badly. And then this fat woman came along and started pouring sweet words into his ears.
You performed great. And you won deservedly. You have so much different props. You're funny, little dear. You have real talent. A comedic streak, for sure.
Thank you.
Why thank me? Thank yourself. Thank your talent.
You're so handsome, you're the most talented, you're the smartest, I love you so much. And she said these important words that he so desperately wanted to hear. She gave him so much that, as he himself later recalled, he became absorbed by her. He started living her life, listening to all her voice messages over and over, analyzing them, documenting her entire life. He himself became a stalker and an obsessive, and he covered that whole wall with information, where she went, where she lived, where she slept, her entire childhood and everything else. He was so deeply involved with her. And this is a vivid example of what can happen with every victim, to one degree or another, with every victim, whether she wants it or not. The longer this goes on, the more the victim becomes emotionally fused with her abuser. That is, on the one hand, her life turns into hell, just like the main character's life. His life turned into hell. He started using drugs, he lost weight, he became depressed, he cried, he lost his home, he couldn't meet his woman, who, by the way, chose transgender. This is also a very interesting separate conversation, because he was raped, he wanted this violence to continue, he began to be attracted to men in female guise. But he was very well aware of all this. The boy was quite developed and conscious. The actors played magnificently, by the way, unknown actors, but they played simply masterfully, you must agree. And this fat lady played simply phenomenally. Everyone played at the highest level. Amazing series. And therefore, if we take any of the victims, she always carries within herself the grandiose format of some initially injured person, which is what attracts this abuser. She invites, attracts with her fear. Now, we are talking in different planes. We are now pursuing precisely this psychoanalytic concept, you understand, very deep, very analytical, and all sorts of sub-medical experts, rights, and so on, laws. For us, this is in a completely different plane. These are things on different planes. Agreed? That's it. Now we are talking about working with the victim, and the more years pass, the more she grows closer to him. She cannot help but think about her. He is already becoming a part of her psyche. He lives with her. She falls asleep with him and wakes up with him. He is always on her mind. She can only take her mind off him for a short time, and he makes himself known again. She looks at what he wrote. What did he write? What did he write? She reads it. She immerses herself in it. Her consciousness narrows, and the victim grows even further. She begins to develop Stockholm syndrome. She begins to justify this victimhood at times, blaming herself for it. It's me who's bad, it's me who maybe looked at it the wrong way, gave a reason, and so on. If I hadn't done it there, hadn't gone there, that wouldn't have happened. I could have avoided it. This is the kind of aggression that comes towards oneself.
Not knowing what it was, fascination, empathy, or guilt, I couldn't lay a claim to it. Sometimes at the very bottom, lying awake and listening to her suffer, I would use all my strength to restrain myself from calling her.
This is a very interesting game. And if, by the way, you look at even this report by Sobchak, there are 3 victims, and they are so defenseless. And there's this girl there with pink hair. She lives with this creep.
And I started communicating with him in rather raised tones. Why are you walking around? Why have you come? Why are you creating fake pages?
I told him, if you approach her one more time, you fool, you will get it from me. But is this kind of man, this kind of weirdo, really going to protect you? Do you understand? It is clear that she remains in a very vulnerable position. They are all three such interesting girls, and both of them are such scared mice. The nurse is like that. I can see that the nurse that this boy has been chasing after for 11 years is someone you could really fall in love with. But she's so unhappy, a single mother, so unhappy. Here she is, walking in this shabby little down jacket, coming out of some shabby front door, and keeps on walking. Victim. It's easy to take her, as it seems. That is, this is not just some girl who got into a car in her closed parking lot with her husband, a normal, respectable man. It's hard to stalk someone like that, although we know very well that stars have also been subjected to stalking. They were the ones who were killed, public figures. But this is a slightly different form of stalking. But it's very easy to stalk here. They are so defenseless, such obvious victims. By the way, the element of involvement was very clearly seen in one victim. I'll include her here now. How she talks to her stalker, to her pursuer.
You are like a child. I've been trying to talk to you.
You are like a child. Well, why have you come again? Why are you acting like a child? He came to me again. He keeps telling me, you will be mine, you will be mine. I love you, I'm in love with you. I say, listen, leave me alone. Leave me alone, you're acting like a child.
Is he coming? Of course.
And again, I am now trying to blame this victim in no way. The victim, I repeat, is never to blame. Never. Even if the victim came out naked at 3 in the morning and was raped, it is not her fault. The rapist is to blame. You just have to get this into your head. We are now talking about some very deep motives that live a separate life. Let me remind you that the victim is most often not recognized. She lives her own separate life. She has her own internal underwater rivers of motivation. And in psychotherapy, Lim, it will be very important to identify the image of one's victim, to understand when it's settled in her, what she wants, what her goals are, what she is pursuing, and so on and so on and so on. Otherwise, it won't be easy to get out of this. He will have to walk for another 10 years if this victimhood is not worked with. That is, in this dialogue, she seems to confirm his imagination. So, child, you are like this. This is who you are. And here they are to each other. I came, well, why did I come? There is no need to come. In her case, at least her specific case, I am analyzing it in this format now. It's as if she's telling me, this is all true, this is how it is. You have a chance, go ahead. Well, okay, I will continue. I know I'll get you, my love. What else do I want to tell you about this stalking? This topic is incredibly profound. You can, of course, simply immerse yourself in it head on, write books, dissertations, make endless films, and hold conversations. Let's summarize the recommendations. At least I have now highlighted for you this psychological portrait of this stalker. I hope that I have conveyed to you a little bit of this core, what guides him, why he goes into this. I want to say that they are all cowards, all of them. They hide. They are afraid of being caught. They are afraid that they might be somehow exposed and given some kind of publicity. They are terrified of it. Accordingly, if you suddenly become the subject of stalking, tell you to urgently move, change your phone, all this can be done. You can move, change your phone, change all this, card it, close it. You've done this a million times. I'm not telling you anything new now. I will say something else, that this needs to be made public. It needs to be shouted about loudly so that all the neighbors know. It is necessary to record everything periodically, but not periodically, but systematically, to record everything from start to finish. Hang up a huge number of cameras, as many as possible, wherever possible. Record all of this, write it down, bombard the police with your complaints. Well, and personally, I'm talking about myself, I would hang it everywhere, his face is everywhere. All my neighbors would know that this is a stalker. Everyone would greet him by now. Hello, little Fedya, you've come again? It is advisable not to walk alone, but to walk in a large group so that everyone can see him, look at him, and photograph him. That is, it must come out into such an open field. It must be made public for everyone. It must be made obvious. Look at him. He is here. This is what he does. This is what he does. Good Lord, look at what he is doing. These girls who contacted Sobchak did the right thing. That is, they announced this, sort of made it public, showed it, demonstrated it. Look, these actions are spot on. Because I can't tell you, girls, boys, but mainly girls, you need to pay some uncles who will go with him into the forest, and in the forest they will show him something very powerful, tell him something. It might take him a very long time to emerge from this forest. I don't know if he'll get out of this forest. I can't tell you this, I can't offer you this, or make an agreement with some police officer so that he would pay special attention to you or help you in some special way in this matter. I kind of want to, but I can't just take it and recommend it to you. Here in the video it would be illegal to do something like that. Therefore, there are different options for this guy to grasp this situation. Or agree with some psychiatrists that a forced hospitalization is in order here. It's time to hospitalize this guy because he already poses a danger to himself and others. That's it, kitties. But it's terrible that in Russia, of course, there is no such law. In America it is, you write very quickly. And he just has no right to come near you at all. A wonderful law. This applies to exes who acted inappropriately, various abusers. There was one who beat his wife. They quickly issue him this order, some kind of restraining order. I don't remember what it's called. And that's it. If he comes close again, he'll be put in jail. I really hope that Russia will have this law to protect our citizens from less than sane comrades. They should be afraid. They are already cowardly. The most important thing here, as I have already said, is to make everything public, but here it is very important to work through your own fear, to work through your own victim. Here is my beloved, I kiss and hug you all tenderly. By the way, I'd like to invite you to my psychotherapeutic group where we work with victimhood. We work on victimhood very intensively. Come, you will have access to all the materials, all my closed videos, all the exercises, all my meditations, all my metaphorical cards. Everything will be available, everything that I have published over the year. This is a huge treasure trove. A whole library awaits you for mere pennies. That is, this is a kind of subscription. Subscribe, the link is below in the description, and you will be a member of our group. You can unsubscribe from this subscription at any time. But every day I provide you with very useful information. I'm writing down some incredibly important material for you. This is a full-fledged training. We work with victimhood and do a lot of other things. I raise some topic and we work on the stated topic for 2 or 3 weeks. So, my lovelies, at the moment we are going through time management. We now have time, how to manage time, but we periodically return to victimhood. So come, my beloved ones. I look forward to seeing you in the group. The group has a gentle, friendly, and very supportive atmosphere. That's it.